Okay, so I've got a little bit of a puppy bedlam outside my door, so I hope to get through this. There's a dog chewing a bone. There is a dog just making his general dog noises. So let's get through this, and hopefully without a bird squawk nor some sort of dog noise. Hi there and welcome. Today we're going to talk about fabrics. You might be new to the sewing scene and have no idea where to start as far as the fabrics are concerned and the projects that you're doing. And while we're talking about projects, why don't you tell me what you are thinking of making, or you may be already making it? Drop it in the comments below. Fabrics essentially fall into two categories. There are others, but for today's purpose and for most projects that you will be doing, you'll be working with either woven fabrics or knit fabrics. Now, woven fabrics are woven, the fibers are actually woven at a 90-degree angle. Think of this shirt. This lends great stability to fabric or projects that are made out of this fabric. So think of things like clothing, shirts. It's great for bag making, purses, wallets, and also good for home projects like curtains. The reason being is that it doesn't stretch as much as the next category, which is knits. Knits are created by a knitting machine, and it's a series of interlocking stitches. And so the fibers are interlocked with loops, so it gives the fabric a lot of stretch. This is really important if you're looking to make things like t-shirt, activewear, swimwear, lounging clothes. So let's go over to the sew scope and take a closer look. So this is another example of a woven fabric. I'm going to bring it up closer. It's plainer, so I'm hoping that you can see the weave. In case you can't, it runs this way and that way. And I'm also going to tug on it so you can see. When I tug on this fabric, there's not a lot of give, is what it's called. So this way doesn't pull very much. And so when you pull it this way, you know that the grain line is going this way. There's another term that you need to know, is the grain line. It's an essential part of when you're going to lay down your pattern pieces. And there's an arrow on your pattern piece that says you need to follow the grain line. So one way of knowing this would be that you would have the selvage on one side and the other. And you can somewhat see it here. It's a little bit tighter weave. So that's one side of the selvage, and I don't have the selvage on this side because I've used it before for a project, so I've cut it off. But the fact that it doesn't stretch much in this direction tells me that the grain line runs this way. Another term that you will hear is the cross grain. The cross grain runs at 90-degree angle to the grain line. And the cross grain has a little give, which means it does pull a little bit more than the grain line. And then another term you need to know is the bias line. And the bias line runs in a diagonal fashion or 45-degree angle to the cross grain and the grain. So I've made a little template so that you can see here that the grain line runs this way, not too stretchy. The cross grain runs from left to right, and here are the selvages, remember? And there is a slight stretch. And then finally the bias, which runs at a 45-degree angle to the grain line and cross grain. And this is where you'll find a lot of stretch, a lot more stretch. And this is important to know because when you're putting your pattern pieces down, if you lay something that's supposed to be on the grain, meaning this way, and you're laying it this way, when you go to put the piece of clothing together or project together, it's going to eventually stretch right out of shape, as you can see. I want to show you what a knit fabric would look like. So let's take a look at that. So this is a cardigan that I have made out of knit. And the reason why I don't have a lot of knit is because I like making a lot of bags and wallets, and typically for that you need something that has a woven pattern to it that is stable. This is the only knit that I could find, and as you can see, it has a lot of stretch. And again, you'll find this type of fabric in sweaters, workout gear, bathing suits, and I'm going to bring this up closer so that you can see. There's a lot of pilling going on where you see the little balls because it's an older sweater, but you can see the interlocking of the fibers that have been made by a knitting machine. And you can see how much stretch this fabric has. Now this type of fabric is a little tougher for the beginning sewer because it has so much stretch. So I would encourage you to stick with fabrics that are woven, like cotton. And I'll also list the types of fabric by their class, whether they're woven or knit. So let's take a look at a pattern, and on the back side, what to look for. The type of fabric is at the very top. And this is key to follow because you want to make sure that your project is not going to stretch out of shape or just entirely be the wrong type of fabric that you need. So let's go over some basic sewing terms. Now one sewing term that for some reason intimidated me and confused me was the word selvage. Now I'm going to show you exactly what a selvage is, and I promise it's really not that intimidating. It's usually a white band, but not necessarily. It can be the same color as the fabric, and it's a tighter weave, and you'll see the dots on the side, as well as you'll usually see the company, the manufacturer of the fabric, as well as the colors. You'll see. Now I'm going to hold it up closely so that you can take a look and see the little holes that are a telltale sign that this is the selvage. And if I flip it over, you'll also see that it has little threads, and it's locked the threads. So if I pulled on one of the threads, it's not going to come loose because it has been secured by this tighter weave. Now I'm going to show you, this would not be the selvage. Reason being is you don't see a difference in the weave, but also if I pull any of these little threads, you can kind of see them unraveling. So this will be the side that the shop will cut for you. It'll be cut crossways, and you'll have the selvage on the right side and the left side. The width of the fabric is also known as WOF, or width of fabric, goes from one side of the selvage on the right side to the other side on the left side. And generally the widths are between anywhere 40 to 60 inches in the US. And so depending on what your project calls for, you will know how to calculate out the yardage of fabric that you need. So a lot of times when you are in a fabric shop, you'll see that the fabric's sold on by the bolt. You can either get the whole bolt, but generally you'll get a length of yardage that you need for your project. But I wanted to show you that on the bolt, on the end, you'll generally see what the fabric is. In this case, it's a flannel and a gray gingham, but it also has the width of fabric. In this case, it's 42 inches. And it also tells you, another important part is it tells you what fibers are in this fabric. This is made up of 100% cotton, and it also tells you the care, which is essential for you to know when you're making a project. So you want to know how you're going to take care of it and take a picture of it, and when you're in the shop to remind you of the care, and also so you know what the width is. So when you're making a decision on how much yardage you need for your project, this is a really important label to look at. Let's take a look at patterns, because that is another thing to consider when you're beginning. The first type would be a fabric that is clearly a directional pattern. As you can see, these little cute King Charles Spaniels, but you can see that they're all going the same direction. There isn't one that's upside down. They're all facing the same way. So when you are finding fabric for a project, you want to keep that in mind, because one, if you use this type of directional fabric, you may need extra yardage. And also you want to keep in mind the way you're going to be laying down the pattern pieces. Okay, so now let's take a look at non-directional prints. So regardless of what type of print you're looking at, as far as if it's floral or if it has a more graphic print to it, you can see that these fabrics would be good regardless of which direction you place the pattern piece on, which would be an easier choice for the beginner sewer. That way you don't have to worry about placing your pattern piece correctly or having one facing up and one going down. And you can also use the exact amount of fabric that is specified without having to buy extra yardage. If you found the content in this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you have any comments, drop them below. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please click subscribe. Bye-bye for now. So in today's video, today we're going to take a look at fabrics, and so if you find the information in this video,